Hi, everyone. One of the things I like to do with the group is get you moving a little bit and to find out by a show of hands how many of you drink coffee. Excellent. You're my kind of people. That's good to know. Tea drinkers? Yeah. Well, that's pretty good too. That's great. Excellent. So we have a totally normal crowd. Coffee is the most widely drunk beverage, and pretty much around the world. I mean, there's certain parts of the world where tea wins, but most of the time coffee is what's winning. And it's kind of amazing that it's that beverage, because coffee is grown between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, and yet, which is the southern hemispheres, and it's grown in kind of the rainforest temperate areas of those countries, and yet it's drunk everywhere else. And so the history of coffee is really one of, it's grown in the south and it's consumed in the north. And that was always one of the things that absolutely fascinated coffee for me, was just how far it traveled to where it's drunk, and it's so ubiquitous in that way. But that's one of the things. But it's also one of the most amazing industries still, in that it's dominated by small-scale farmers. There are two types of coffees, Arabicas and Robustas. And Arabicas, which make up the better kinds of coffees, 70% of the world's production of Arabica is by small-scale farmers that work on farms that are no bigger than 2.5 hectares. And coffee for them, it's a cash crop. They oftentimes, the lands that they're growing their coffee on are also where they're growing crops for their own subsistence. And coffee is one of either the one single cash crop or one of two crops, or dairy cows or what have you, that they'll do for cash in that way. So to me, it always, it's just amazing that for 400 years we've had coffee houses. For that many hundreds of years, coffee's been traveling in boats and being roasted in the north and consumed in the north, and yet it still has stayed very, very small scale. And to me, that's actually one of the motivators for getting into coffee, and how shocking it was, to go to Nicaragua in 1987 and be served Sanka. That coffee had such this long history, and so enjoyed, and yet, these farmers were so divorced from what they were doing. And I thought to myself, that's really not fair. It doesn't seem right. And it wasn't until, the year 2000 that we founded Bridgehead, and it's only been in the last year that I realized that the seed of the inspiration for me was in that trip to Esteli and Madagalpa way back then. And that's actually one of the first comments that I want to make about, particularly the budding entrepreneurs in the room, is you need to find out what your inspiration for your business is, and you absolutely need to feel passionate about it. And for most of us that go into business, we go into it, some of us go into it with the notion of, I'm going to be a serial entrepreneur, and my first business is going to be this, and then my next business is going to be this. But for most of us, particularly entering into small business, we're entering into it because we have an absolute passion for what it is we want to do. We want to share that passion with others, and you absolutely need that when you start. And the other thing is that you're probably going to be in that business a long time, and you better like it. So, if you're going to keep at it that long. But I'm going to lower this just a little bit. Actually, I take off my, that's right. But I want to give you a little bit of background. Some of the advice I have about talking to this group is to tell a little bit of the story. And so the story for me, we've heard about the seed, but in the year 2000, I had actually been, Bridgehead had a life before me, in that it had been owned by Oxfam for a bunch of years, and it had started in 1981 out of Toronto as a Nicaraguan solidarity effort. And when there was a U.S. embargo on the coffee from farmers from Nicaragua, a bunch of concerned Canadians, how we're kind of gooey about Cuba, well, we were kind of gooey about Nicaragua, and so they decided to import Nicaraguan coffee, bring it here, and distribute it. And the name Bridgehead was named such by the founders. It's an old British military term that means going into enemy territory and setting up a base of operations. So our base in Kandahar is often referred to in the news as Bridgehead. And the founders of Bridgehead saw it as a way of being the fair and just eyes, ears, hands of small-scale growers in the hostile consuming countries of the north. And that's what it was. But zip forward to 2000, Bridgehead had been owned for a long time by Oxfam. It changed its core business over many years, many times, and actually suffered a bankruptcy. And naive, and I'm going to say this is the second thing for these budding entrepreneurs, you need a certain amount of naivete when you start your business. Because about 10 years later you go, wow, I wouldn't have done it that way. I might not have done it at all. In any case, you also need a certain amount of naivete. My naivete was feeling that I didn't want this idea of being a demonstration business and bringing coffee traded outside of the highly speculative New York City market, wanted to mainstream it and have it be introduced to a lot of people. So I didn't want Bridgehead to die, so I went to friends and family and said, will you please give me some money that if I fail, you won't mind. Like you won't, don't tell me you're going to give me money and then you won't be able to retire if the business fails. But you know, will you please put in some money and help me get a business off the ground to return Bridgehead to its roots in coffee, and you know, the prepared beverage segment was really growing. Remember when Starbucks came to town? Yeah, people probably remember that. But in any case, the prepared beverage segment has been growing over the last 20 years remarkably, and when we started the business in 2000, it felt to us that there wasn't really a fair trade offering, and that there were lots of small roasters that were wholesaling fair trade coffee, but there was no one actually putting it in a cup for people to drink. And when we started, that was our goal, was to actually get close to the end customer and to really link customers with small-scale growers and to be able to tell the stories of the small-scale growers and to hopefully do a good job of making their coffee taste as good as they could make it. In any case, that's how we started. Our first shop was beside the Mountain Equipment Co-op. It was a pretty good move, I thought. In any case, and there were no competitors for a few kilometers around. We thought that was good too. And people, the community there embraced us, and we were thrilled for that. But we did have a goal, and I'll say this, part of the naivete, our original business plan called for us going to 5 to 7 cities with 5 to 7 shops in 5 to 7 years. I failed miserably on that front. But that's part of what happens, is that you learn as you go, and your business plan kind of evolves as you go. But all to say, we certainly had the view that we wanted to become a chain, which still doesn't sit right when we say that around our management table. You know, we're kind of a chain now, but we still feel fiercely independent. But for us, you know, the more stores that we open, the more fairly traded coffee that we're bringing to customers. So that's all good. The first store surprised us with how well we were embraced, so we decided to open a second shop. And the second shop, we decided to go into the heart of the competitive cafe market in the Glebe here in Ottawa. And we were the 5th coffee house to open, and we opened on a side street. But in a way, we needed to know fairly early whether or not we had, hopefully, the principle of purchase or the uniqueness, the differentiation from the competitors of ours to have customers come to us. And they did come to us. Our sales in our second shop actually exceeded what was happening in the first shop, despite all that competition. We realized something there. Oh, where there's established cafe cultures, that's good. We can actually locate where there's other coffee houses. Because you people just can't get enough of them. Anyway.